Good day, Magic players. This is Gutler here, and I want to have a talk about something I didn't mention in my last video, and that was why the hybrid mana rules change didn't go through, and what I think it means for Magic, and what I'd like to see going forward with them, um, you know, coming up with better ways to do this. So the first is you know, I was pretty certain that they were going to do the rules change. There was just a lot of, um, there were a lot of YouTubers that were sort of anti-rules change, but there were some that were positive. But when you looked at the feedback on the official um, thread that's in the MTG Discord, the hybrid mana discussion feedback was everyone there was basically pro chains in a way. And what would happen is you would go in if someone was anti chains, they would go in, they would say, "Hey, I'm anti chains for this reason," and they would just get immediately piled on by 10 people responding that, "Oh, what you're saying, we disagree with it for A, B, C, D." You know, I mean, it wasn't like a mean way of debate, but it was just seemed that like everyone in the official feedback was just so pro chains that I couldn't see them deciding not to do it. And it does make me pretty satisfied that I look at what Gavin did, and he did the poll. He's polled Magic players somehow and got the split. And so the famous thing is this poll was very evenly split right down the middle. You had about 44% of players in favor of a change, but then you had 38% that were opposed. And the largest categories were people in either the strongly in favor or the strongly opposed to the change. So obviously you know, it was a very even split, and I understand that people are saying, well, there's more people that support it than don't, but I understand that like, you can't just, if you're gonna have a 20+ percent of your group that are gonna be highly against this change, you can't make it that way because even though you'd have like 20% of people who are highly supportive of it, the people who are highly supportive are already playing the game, right? They're not like non-players that are like, I don't play Commander because hybrid doesn't work the way I want, right? They're Commander players who are like, I want hybrid to work the way I want. But the 20% who are opposed are Commander players right now, but if they receive a change where hybrid is changed, they could have a situation where they're like, oh no, they've they've undermined commander. It's not right. I'm gonna be quitting the game. I'm gonna be not playing commander. Be selling my cards, something like that. They could be it could be this thing, and you could have of course you have the opportunity to have a fracture format here where you have a large enough percentage of people that are anti-change where they could just say, okay, we're gonna make you know games tables. We're going to have rule zero. Hybrid works the old way, right? Color identity works the old way. So you'd have people show up to like play, and they'd be like, "Oh, are you playing new rules or old rules?" Right? So you can have this weird situation where the the amount of people who are protesting it would be so high and affected that they could effectively you know, you have um, a du jour change in the rules, right? Where people are, um, able to play hybrid. But you can have a situation where the de facto on the ground situation doesn't care about the rules; it just cares about what people want to do in Rule Zero. So if you have people who are going around in um, Rule Zeroing that old hey old old color identity rules, sorry, you can't use hybrids, that could like I would say like would 100% split the format, but it can cause a lot of like bad and sourness between it. So remember, so what do I think we need to get the rules change going forward, right? If we want to pursue the rules change, how do we do that going forward? Well, the first is one of the things about hybrid is that it's being used more in modern card design. However, hybrid cards tend to be draft cards, commons and uncommons, things that are, you know, these are not going to be cards. These are not like exciting mythics that people want to slot into their commander decks or even rares, right? These are going to be, oh boy, it's Cat Owl, right? It draws a card. Okay, is that exciting? If you're playing Pauper Commander, maybe. If you're playing, um, certain kind of decks, these things you may want to put them in if they're really fit exactly what you're doing. But these are not like gigantic, big ticket. Oh, people are cracking packs to hope to open a hybrid card to play in their monocolor deck or their two color deck where one of the colors is not the hybrid color, right? So, like, one thing is, I think that, like, the use of hybrid by design is good, but they're not, but like, people are more excited about the regular cards that are monocolor or two color or gold or those things than they are about a hybrid card. And there aren't hybrid cards that are so pushed that people are really really wanting to put them in decks. And so this is why in my last video I made on the topic, I was an advocate for Phyrexian mana and color indicators to be removed as well, because I thought that um, if you were, I mean, this card you can already play in a colorless deck because it's got the benefit of the meld in it. But I was a big advocate of, look, you have to sell the public exciting cards for them to want to make a big change to the rules, and draft stuff from Avatar is not doing it, right? So you have to give them, like, you have to be like, you could play Mental Misstep in a green deck. Whoa, isn't that a big change? And of course there are gonna be people who are like, oh my gosh, I'm so anti that. But the thing is that the same ore that they want to change on a hybrid card where it says green or white mana, right, for Kitchen Finks. It's the same ore here that says blue or two life mana for this. So there needs to be some sort of like colorless recognition of Phyrexian mana cards that are okay, we're opening up color identity, so we're leaving all the split cost symbols that have that slash symbol in them, like G/white is the symbol for hybrid Azorius. And the same thing is G/2 life is the symbol for Phyrexian blue, or U/2 life symbol for Phyrexian blue, right? So I think you have to open up all the slash symbols because these are the more exciting cards that are coming into the format if you do it, and that sort of sells the change better than the draft cards, right? So I would bring these in, right? And then I also think color indicators you could do as well, because cards with color indicators, right? Um, they look like a normal card on the front, but of course they have a different color in the back. But these are going to be cards that um, because they're treated as just the color of their front face, right? I think you could just say we're going to ignore the color indicator. We could let you just play it as the card. Like if you get like this or the mono white Avacyn or something, you just put in your white deck. You might not even know. It's like, oh, I didn't realize it flipped into a red card. If you with the match. So I think this is one you can do. And part of the reason is there's already that rules carve out for meld cards, right? Like this card has a green white green blue color indicator on it, but because it's part of a meld card, it's treated as just a full colorless card, right? So I don't think you need to take color indicators on cards into account for their color identity. I think that can go away too. But how do we get hybrid to be acceptable? So we have our hybrid cards here, um, and I think one of the issues is that one, um, a lot of these hybrids are older, so I think that the fact that they are making more new hybrid cards is going to be just exciting because people will open them in packs and be like, "Oh, can I play this in my green deck?" And then people will tell them, "Oh, you can't play it because it's a green red card," and they'll be like, "Okay, that's fine." But I think one of the things is when you look at some of these cards, is that like, oh, what were people excited to play with, before the 2026 in Magic, right? Well, when we're in October, people are like, "Oh, I want to play Vexing Shusher in my Goblin deck, right? Because it's a Goblin and it gives me Uncounterable, and I like Uncounterable, and I want to play Red." And then here you have, dun dun dun. A few months later, you have Lorwyn come around, and then they make Hexing Squelcher, and people are like, "Well, I don't think I need to play Shusher anymore." Like it's like even if they change the rule, I wouldn't want two of them. I just want Squelchers. So it's a way better card, right? So they'll just play Squelcher in their deck, right? And I think there are other ones that are coming out, and I think that like there's always that potential of, oh, what's a hybrid card that's awesome? Well, it's you know it could be like Memory Plunder, right? Well, they could just make a version of Memory Plunder that's monocolor, not hybrid, and could even be better than Memory Plunder, just like Squelcher is better than Vexing Shusher, right? So we have sort of the weirdness. So I think that it's good they're making new cards, right? We want those cards to be powerful and played, right? So let those cards be um, let's see what they come up with, right? I looked at the TMNT set. I'm not seeing anything that sort of sways me and says, "Oh, these. Oh my gosh, I'm so mad the rule didn't change. This card is so amazing for my monocolor deck. I can't wait to put it in." Right? I'm not seeing anything like, this is. I'm seeing them and I'm like, they're okay. It's fine. There's no like they don't seem that crazy, but I think that's like we need like the really push things. You need like the One Ring of hybrid. You need like the Ristic study of hybrid. You need something that comes out and it's just like, you know, it's like Prophet of Krufix, where it's like this is the reason to be in Simic. You get Prophet of Krufix, right? It's like this is the reason to be in green. You could have um like this is the reason to be play like a green red deck, and then you say like, oh, this is open to mono green and mono red deck. So I think we kind of need that level of card, and I don't think they're giving it to us, right? Which is why I advocated for the Rexian cards, because I think that like cards like Birthing Pod and Atali Primal Conqueror and um, you know Mental Misstep and Dismember. Those are cards that and Prixie Metamorph. Those are cards that are like have the power and the notoriety that people want, and they're the kinds of cards that like people will change their decks for. Whereas nobody's changing their decks for some avatar hybrid cards. Nobody's like, oh, I really need this. In like if they're doing maybe avatar theme, right? They'll do it, but like people aren't like, oh, I really need this for avatar. I'm gonna slot them in, right? So it's not gonna like the hybrid change is not gonna be successful if it doesn't have like the weight of these awesome cards people are excited about to sort of push them over the edge from being anti to being pro, right? So, what would I like to see going forward from Wizards in regards to the chains? Well, one is they already ran a poll, which I don't know how much that costs to do. I don't know how hard it is to do. I know they did it. I don't know if they do that for other changes that they're thinking about. I think they just, talk to the CFP and gather feedback. I don't think they did a poll about like should Biorhythm be unbanned, uh, should Lutri become, banned as a companion, unbanned anywhere else? I think they just talked to the CFP and got a decision that way. So I think that when it comes to this poll that they did and got, community feedback, what would I like to see with that? Well, if it's feasible to re-poll, you know, um, several times a year, I don't know if you do it monthly, I don't know if you do it quarterly, if you do it, you know, um, every 6 months, something like that. If you could send out that same poll to people and see how they feel about hybrid, I think that's a good idea. Because then when you do the hybrid change, what you could is if you're going to do the hybrid change, right? If you polling feedback starts becoming positive to the change, what you can do is say look back and be like, okay, we've sent this poll out. We've done it every month for 18 months, and in the beginning the poll was people were more negative than positive, right? And then over time, as more sets in 2026 and 2027 have come out, and there's more hybrid cards, and people want to play those hybrid cards in their monocolor decks or their decks that are missing one color, or if it's even a two breed card and it's missing, they want to sort of play it in a deck that is completely colorless. You can have this poll data that you have, and then present that to the community and say, hey, we've been doing the poll every month or quarterly or something, and it's been 7 quarters, and the last 4 quarters we had like 60% in favor, 65% in favor, 35% opposed, 70% in favor, 30% opposed. Like that's the kind of thing where if you have like this stream of people voting in your polls to change it, that's something you could present if you do it that way. Now, if you don't want to do, if of course, if doing polling is expensive in a way, I don't know how hard it is for Wizards of the Coast to do that. But if doing polling in that way, the same way you did for the current change, where you had 44-38 in opposition, um, what you could do is then you have to do you just have to just do another poll later. It has to be overwhelming. It has to be like 85-15 or like 80-20. So it has in favor. And I think that like you're not going to get that 80-20 poll because there's just going to be this holdout of people who are opposed to the change. So what I would think you should do is just do the like monthly or quarterly polling so you can establish a um, hey, this is what player attitude looked like on this in you know February 2026, and now it's February 2028. Here's what player attitude looks like, and you could show that over time, as you continually run the poll, there's been a shift in favor of the change. So you could say, okay, now I have, my polling is 60% for, 40 against, 65% for, 35% against. You could sort of say, okay, it's been enough. We have enough data. There's a vast majority of players who are for this. We can make the change, right? So I think that's the kind of thing you need to do if you want to make the change to hybrid in a way. Now, of course, I'm going to advocate that you should you should change hybrid, two grid, and Phyrexian Mana altogether because they're all hybrid types. But I think what you could do is you could do this very, excuse me, I'm very thirsty. You could do this polling where you talk to players and see how excited they are about each individual aspect of color identity. And so one thing you could do is that like you could put everything on the table. You could put split cards. You could put you know all the quarter cases, right? You could put things that are like, oh, it has an alternate casting cost, like a bringer of the Black Dawn or something. You put all these things on the table and then see what the player feedback is. And if you establish that feedback over a long period of time, that hey, players are perfectly okay with things like bringer of the Black Dawn, and they're okay with things, but they're not okay with like, oh, you have a green deck and it has Rhystic Study in it. Somehow, they're okay with things like Phyrexian Metamorph in a black deck, right? These are things that you can establish over time with the polling, and I think that is the best opportunity going forward is to do it. Now, what's the other option going forward if we want to have the hybrid mana rules change? Well, I think the other option is to do what I talked about earlier, where you'd have a split format, but do it in reverse. So instead of having a situation where they make the rules change, and then the people in the anti camp are just they're so upset that they're going, we will play without the rules change. We're gonna have a splitter format that says old color identity rules. We're gonna have our games rule 0. It'll say you want to join this game. It'll say old color identity rules, no hybrids. Something like that. It'll be like okay, okay. So that's a way you could do the split identity, but you could do it with the pro side too. So one thing that was very disappointing to me, and I think that um, you know, I don't want to say shows the the pro hybrid changes size true colors is, but I did say, hey, there's a lot of people here who are pro hybrid, and they were saying, well, we should ask like the players that do like MTG Goldfish or something that they should play games with hybrid cards, right? Like we should get them to do that. And it's like, well, you're not going to convince them. Like Tomer already made a video that says he doesn't want to have play with the hybrid cards. He doesn't like that, right? So like just getting MTG Goldfish Ice to do it as a gimmick is not going to be the game you want. You want the people who want to have the hybrid change, right, for it. So I said, well, we have a lot of people on the Discord, right? We should just play the hybrid games, and someone can record them and put them on YouTube, right? That could be exciting, right? But then everyone was like, "Oh no, we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it. It's not for us," you know. And I was like, you have if you want other players to play against hybrid cards, you have to be the one to bite that bullet and say, I'm gonna play against hybrid cards. I want to play hybrid cards and against hybrid cards, right? So I think the pro side needs to come out and um, make a YouTube channel or forget a YouTube channel or something, and just start even just playing games. Just play games with Rule Zero on Spell Table and have things that are like, hey, we're gonna play um, games with hybrid cards. Let's see how it goes, right? And just see how it goes, and like let the footage be out there and available to people so they can see. Oh, was this game better because of hybrid cards, or did we just see like Float Suggestion get like played 3 different times by 3 different players and it wasn't fun or exciting at all, right? You know, this is the kind of thing like we need testing on, right? So let's get the actual like on the ground nuts and bolt testing with hybrid. Let's get that done and put out for people to see, and then that's the way you can also sway people, right? When they say that, like, "Hey, I'm really worried about what Magic looks like with hybrid," right? Like, I'm really worried about like, oh my gosh, is a red deck with a Tali Conqueror and a Westvale Abbey, is that crazy? And then you just see a red deck with these cards in it, and you're watching the gameplay footage, and you're like, actually, that doesn't look good at all. Like, it looks like just normal Magic, right? It doesn't look overpowered, doesn't look crazy. This is you know, these are fine. You know, things that like, oh, like Memory Plunder in Mono Black, is that crazy? It's like, you know, show it to them. You know, show them these things. Like, this is the kind of thing that like you need to have on. You know, hey, we tested it with hybrid. It was, it's fine. You know, there's no issues. And I think that like the fact that the community was opposed to that, you know, didn't bode well for it. So I think that like other than Wizards polling, I'd like to see the community that wants to change step up and say, "Hey, look, we're just gonna pretend it happened and play with it, right? And see how the games go. And if they go a good way, that'll be awesome. Let's see how it is, and let's play those." And I think that's another way you can sell that to, you know, to the game designers team, right? Like, hey, look, here's like, you know, 15 games of everyone playing with hybrid cards. Isn't that fun and exciting, right? You know, and then they can sort of judge based on that. All right, Magic players, that's all I have for today. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye for now.